Coming up on iOS today, Rosemary Orchard and I talk about some apps and methods to enhance and maintain those relationships you have with friends and family. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
All right, our annual survey is going strong, and we don't want to miss your feedback. If you fill out that feedback, we get to know a little bit more about you, so we make sure that our programming and our advertisers are the right thing for you. Go to twit.tv/survey22 to take it now before it closes in March. It only takes a few minutes. I filled it out like 8 times. It only took me a few minutes, so I promise you it won't take you that long. Go to twit.tv/survey22 to take it. Thank you. Hello. Welcome to iOS Today. This is the show where we talk all things iOS, iPadOS, tvOS, HomePodOS. I know I'm missing some of the OSs because there are a lot of OSs that Apple has on offer, and we love to talk about them here on iOS Today. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I am Rosemary Orchard. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Rosemary. How are you today?
Oh, I'm good. You know, love is in the air. I'm wearing a jumper. People obviously listening to the audio can't see it. People at home can't see it either because it's a little low. It says love is love because, yesterday was Valentine's Day and relationships are important. And everybody hopefully has people that they love and love to stay in touch with.
Yes, I think that this is a fantastic topic in honor of the, some folks will argue commercial holiday that is Valentine's Day, but it is a good time to sort of take a second and appreciate the folks you have in your life. And also, there's some people who'd cringe about this, but I think this is a good time, too, to remember that we should also love ourselves. And so we are talking today about some different methods, some different opportunities, some different ways that you can both enhance and maintain the relationships that you have with other people. I like to think about relationships as every individual relationship to me is a bonsai tree. And one of the things about bonsai trees, the things that makes bonsai a unique art form, is the fact that you are meant to work on a bonsai tree. You're meant to prune it. You are meant to sort of maintain a shape, maintain a structure to create this beautiful thing that is a bonsai tree. And I think relationships in many ways work the same way, that when you give them time and attention, when you foster growth, then it pays back in absolute reward. You feel great about it, and when there's reciprocation that exists, it's all very good. And so looking at this, I think it's our opportunity to kind of help you. We're going to give you the gardening gloves that you put on, the tiny little tweezers that you use to sort of remove the new sprigs from if you're making a juniper bonsai. I am kind of a bonsai nerd. I've got a book called The Encyclopedia of Bonsai. So I will stop from going on because Rosemary, I think we should start with the first tip that you have. I think this is a great tip, and it's one that I think a lot of people don't realize is there. But as someone who was diagnosed with ADHD, this is one of my favorite things that exists in iOS. So tell us about your first tip here.
Yeah. So my first tip is that you can get a reminder when you're sending somebody a message on iOS. And this is a feature built into the Reminders app, no third-party apps required. So what you do to start with is you just open up your Reminders app, whichever list, any list of your choice. If you use lots of different lists to keep things organized, that's fine. And you just need to add a new reminder. And so I could set a reminder to ask about next week's topic. And you can see that Reminders has already got a nice handy feature where it's suggesting that I change next week to the date. I don't want to do that. But what I want to do is I want a reminder when messaging. And I want a reminder when messaging specifically a person that some of you may know his name. He should be in here somewhere. I believe it's Mikah Sargent. Where did you go? There you are. And so now if I go to message Mikah in the Messages app, it's going to pop up and ask me if I, or remind me about this. So I'll just pop over to Messages and look, here's Mikah. And it will in a second. I've actually got the reminders disabled because I'm in a focus mode, or it was in a focus mode. I've just disabled it, thankfully. It will actually pop up next time I go to message him. And that is such a great feature because you can really make the most of things like this. If somebody, for example, their cat's not well, you could make a reminder to ask next time you message them to to ask about how is their cat, or various other things, or something that you need to ask somebody about that's important, but it's really not urgent. And you remember it at an inconvenient time where you're not going to have place or time to write down the answer or figure out what their response is. This is a really nice way of just being able to get a reminder at the appropriate time and location, and it will just pop in at the top of your screen when you go to message someone.
It reminds me of an episode of The Office, the US version, where Michael Scott has a Rolodex. And inside of his Rolodex, he's got all of the contacts that he maintains and little notes about each contact. And he's got this coding system that other people don't understand and highlights them in different ways. And so one of them is that he highlights things in green. And when it's highlighted in green, he knows green means go, which means to go ahead and shut up about it, meaning not to say those things. But someone else takes his Rolodex and tries to use it against him with some different clients, and they're saying all of the things in green, which of course is making the client very upset because you're supposed to go ahead and shut up about it. This reminds me of that in the sense that, like you mentioned, the cat, if you've got a bunch of different people that you talk to in a given day, to have that reminder of like, oh yeah, the last time that I spoke with this person, they were talking about how they weren't feeling well. This would be a good opportunity to say, hey, how are you feeling? And I think too, there could be some would argue that is inauthentic, but I would argue that it is something that you still want to do. It's just that we all have a bunch of things going on a given day and may not remember that. So to have that opportunity to be reminded to use this technology for good and to make someone feel like they are important, or to show someone that they are important, I think is a really special thing. So I like this as just a standard sort of productivity tip, but also, as you mentioned, a relationship tip that you can have that reminder of what's going on.
Yeah. I think if you're going out of your way to set up your own reminders to ask people about things, it's not inauthentic. It's, it's just something that you're doing so that you do remember to ask them about that. It's like having a shared calendar. It means that everybody's up to date on all the information without having to, remember stuff in your head, because let's face it, our brains really suck at remembering things sometimes.
Yes.
So that's one of the reasons why I like to use things like reminders and the calendar. That's another thing I've got, Mikah. I don't know if you've tried this. I have a calendar event, which is just called Information, and it has a bunch of various things in there. So for example, when my grandmother went to the hospital to have an eye checkup, I put that in my calendar as an all-day event on that day in my information calendar. And it meant that I saw on that day that she'd had her eye appointment, was able to send her a message in the evening and check how she was and if everything was going great. And it turns out everything was, but she really appreciated the checkup because I added something to my calendar, which allowed me to see that was going on. And I like to put important events in my friends' lives in things like that, even though they don't necessarily affect me. But knowing somebody's got a big job interview coming up means that you can, send them a message in advance to wish them good luck.
Absolutely. I like that, the idea of an information calendar. I think I'll be adding one of those for sure. Now, another one that I think is a good conversation is, not a good conversation, but rather a good tip, is that we, of course, maintain a lot of conversations with a lot of people. But if you look through your messages, chances are there are going to be some folks or some groups with whom you communicate a lot more than others. And there's a handy way to sort of make sure that those folks are regularly available to you as you need to communicate with them. And this is a fairly new feature, right, Rosemary?
Yes. It came out, I believe it was in iOS 14. And that is, of course, the ability to pin messages inside of the Messages app. So you can pin conversations, and these can be group conversations or individual conversations. So I've got the maximum number of pinned people here, and that's 9. But what I could do with any of these people, so say, for example, this person, Mikah, I'm not sure I want to talk to him quite so much anymore. I can tap and just unpin him, and then it will rearrange things, and bam, he's gone. And it's the same thing to pin somebody. You can just tap and hold and then pin, and then you can just drag them around. So you need to press down and then sort of half hold for a second. And then you'll be able to rearrange people and drag and drop. And this is just a great way of keeping those people right at the top. It does mean that I don't necessarily get a preview. Like you can see, I've got a preview here from my grandmother. She's saying that she loves the balloons. It was her birthday yesterday. But if I tap and hold on somebody, then I'll get a preview of their messages. And that is really great for just being able to, keep those people front and center of your mind as you go into the Messages app and go about your day.
Yes. I want to give a brief mention because I talked about this app in the past. It doesn't appear to be available in the App Store right now, but it just deserves an honorable mention. And I'm hoping that this is just sort of maybe they're working on a new version of the app or something like that. But I had mentioned this, I think last year even, this app called the which will include a link to the website in the description because I want to give it attention. There's an app, but there's also a physical version of this game. It's a card game, and essentially what it is, it's a way to spark conversations in relationships, be they friendships or, relationships with a partner or relationships with family members. And I'm going to go ahead and pull it up because I have it downloaded, so it's available to me. But these are the different card packs, and you've got one for friends here. There's one for family, for couples, for dating. So I'll choose friends. And in here, there are some different options, including test your friendship, sweet and sour. True friendships push you into both the sweet and sour. So let's choose that one. I'll tap play and use one of my credits to play this deck. And then I like that this is how it starts. It says, relax and look at one another until you feel the phone buzz. So it sort of starts to form a connection right there at the get-go. And then I'm feeling the phone buzz. And so now the card has popped up. It says, when do you feel closest to me and why? So if I was sitting with my friend, I would say, when do you feel closest to me and why? And the other person would answer. And then you can answer back as you want to. So you take a moment, you hear that out, and kind of get a little bit more inside knowledge there. Then you would pass the phone to the other person. They would ask the next question: what do I do that makes you trust me? We go to the next one. What do I do that allows you to feel most comfortable being yourself, and why? And it goes on and on. There are these really good questions that stimulate some conversation, and also the idea that you get to sort of, I think that sometimes we can sort of trivialize the relationships that we have or forget that the depth that exists in relationships that we have, friendships, etc. And so to have these questions that kind of peer into how other people think about you it's incredibly rewarding. And so I had to give an honorable mention to that. I hope it comes back as an app, but you can get the physical card pack that works just the same, just as I said, in a physical way. So.
Interrupt. I think they had a bad link on their website, and I did find, I guess they have a new link.
So excellent.
It is available.
Yay! Good. Okay, that's awesome. So yes, we will include the actual link in the show notes so that you can check it out and play it, because I think this is amazing. All right. for folks who are watching, there's not an earthquake currently happening where I am. If you could see the camera shaking, it is some sort of vibration that's happening in my building. So yeah, but not an earthquake. All right, let us move. Actually, no, we'll take we'll talk a little bit more about some other options like using your calendar in just a moment. All right, so we're talking about ways to maintain and enhance relationships with others. And Rosemary, you've got a great tip for something that's a little bit more visible regularly whenever you launch your phone by way of a widget.
Yeah. So, of course, there's information that we have about people's lives, which is date-based. And I mentioned before the idea of an information calendar. And you can do something on your phone to make this appear. And that is, of course, using the iOS Calendar Widget so that you can have all that information front and center whenever you need it to be. And what I've done here is I've just added a large calendar widget to my phone, but then I've done the magic trick. So after you add the widget, if you edit your widget, then you can change which calendars you appear. So you can have it mirror the birthday, mirror your calendar app, which of course is great if you're just looking to get all of your information. But maybe if you want specific information, so, this is maybe an extra home screen that you have that you just swipe over to check what's going on in other people's lives, then you can narrow it down. So you can do things like birthdays, and then you could do, something, if you've got an information calendar, mine is hidden on a separate account here. But I've got all the birthdays in there. So then whenever I look at this, I'll see whoever's birthdays it is coming up. And that's really nice just to be able to get that kind of overview in one place. Of course, there are some other apps as well. There's great apps like, for example, Widgetsmith that can do this. But the calendar app and the various widgets available can be quite nice. And I've used the list version for this. You could change to something like Up Next, but I find the list version particularly is great for just getting an overview of those important upcoming events that you're going to want to keep an eye on that aren't necessarily related to your specific life.
Nice. All right, let's see. What is next? I love this that there are third-party apps that are sort of all about maintaining communication, maintaining relationships. And one of those is made by the same folks that make my favorite calendar app, and I think quite a few folks who, dabble in the App Store. Definitely love Fantastical, but Fantastical makes an excellent contacts app that has more features than you would get with the standard contacts app.
Yeah. They have a great app called Cardhop. And Cardhop, the entire purpose of it looks at the contacts in your phone, so you don't have to sign into any accounts or anything. And you can just go ahead and see all of your contacts so that you can actually, get that information in a slightly different format with a couple of bonus features. So I'm just going to open Cardhop here a second. And you can see I've got some people here. And then if I pop over, then there's, of course, the first option, which I love, is the birthdays view, which gives me pretty much the same thing that I had in that widget, but it's a little nicer, it's a little bigger. And of course, there's dark mode as well. And the best part of this is that this is also available as a widget. Cardhop has a dedicated birthdays widget called the birthdays widget, which I love about this. But what I also really like is the ability to add notes to a contact. So I can actually add a new contact, and I'm going to go ahead and just do that. And I'm going to add this person called Test Example, just because I don't want to give anybody's actual information away. And I will just open them up and find my Test Example. And now I'm in Test Example. I can actually add a note, but I can add notes with timestamps. And so, for example, I could say, that Mikah's hair looks particularly great today, for example. And, this is not a great example of things, but I use this to keep information. For example, one of my colleagues has two cats. They both look very, very similar, but one of them is fluffier than the other. And I've noted down which one is which in her contact information so that whenever I'm trying to remember, hey, which one is which one do I usually see? I can just quickly check in her contacts information, and then I'll remember which cat it is, because it's usually the not quite so fluffy one that I see on a regular basis. And it's nice to be able to have this information and also, just dump it in here when it's, something that's not necessarily specifically time-based, because I personally love the idea of having a calendar where I can put all these pieces of information in for these people. But you can, manage other bits of information right here by adding more. The other thing that you can do, of course, with Cardhop is you can have a dedicated widget on your home screen to jump straight to different people and whatever kind of contact method you prefer. And so then, for example, if my favorite way to message test example was through iMessage, then it could open iMessage. But if I prefer to use Telegram, well, I can set that up and then use that as well to contact them through the widget. And that's a really great feature that I appreciate exists.
Lovely. Yeah, I mean, that is the Rolodex notes thing that I was talking about earlier right there. And I like that it's time-stamped because that way you have context too of, oh, it was when we were together at this party that my contact told me about this specific thing. So you have a little bit more information about when something specific happened, why that note is there, and what's going on in a little bit more detail than maybe you would if you just sort of took a note randomly. The last one that you want to mention is, I think I've seen a few different apps try to take this on, and it can be kind of difficult because of the simplicity of this feature. But what's great about it is no matter what app you use, there's something fun about adding a little bit of anticipation to a thing. It's why Advent calendars exist around the holidays. And sort of folks, I can remember as a kid having a countdown to your birthday or some specific day, maybe the last day of school before it was time for summer. Anticipation is fun at times. And so tell us about the way that we can keep track of upcoming events.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really love about iOS is that there are so many great apps. And one of them, one of my favorites, is Count Time. Now, Count Time allows me to easily add a widget to my home screen telling me how long left until whatever that next event is. So right now you can see it's telling me I've got 6 days left until iOS today. And if I pop in, I can have different groups or categories of my countdowns. So if I pop into others, then I can see I've got an important event with 2 exclamation marks in 13 days. And it's pink because I set it up to be pink. And I can go ahead and get a full screen view of this. I can star it. I can even share it if I wanted to. So I could share that straight over to Mikah so that he would also know that there's 13 days until this event. But what I really like about this particular one is it's so easy to create a countdown. And of course, you can add an image. So I can add a great image of this dessert that I had at the weekend. And, I can even repeat things and have alerts. So if I wanted it to repeat daily, and then I set it to, say, today, and I'm just going to set that to 7 p.m. Make sure that's nice and far in the future. If I pop back to my home screen and then give it a second, bam, my widget's updated because that's my next event. And I really like that feature where I can just, see whatever is coming up next and jump to it. And I really like it counting down to all sorts of things like, when I'm going to go and see all of my friends in a couple of weeks. That's in there and so on and so forth. And it's just great to know what's upcoming in a way that's really easy to create things. And of course, I can add images. Now, this particular photo is not a great photo because it's a mixture of light and dark. So whatever text you put over the top, it's not going to be very readable. But if I chose a dark image or a light image, then it would work even better. So I am very pleased with this app, Mikah. And I really like the fact that it has the 3 widget sizes. And what more do you want from a simple, free countdown app called Count Time?
Indeed. Those are some ways that you can enhance and maintain your relationships using built-in iOS features as well as a couple of iOS apps. There are, lots of different ways that we go about showing other people we care. We've done episodes in the past on how to use apps to send things in the mail, for example. So there were lots of different apps that let you send postcards and notes and gift cards and all sorts of stuff that's available on the App Store. Getting in touch with your family using the new FaceTime feature called SharePlay, which Rosemary and I covered in the past as well. Lots of different SharePlay apps you can use so that you and others can watch video or listen to music. Those are just a few of the ways that you can build upon those relationships. So, get creative, get clever. There are lots of different things. And as always, we'd love to hear the ideas that you have for enhancing and maintaining those relationships and how you kind of keep track of what's going on in the world, like Rosemary's tip earlier with the info calendar. So that is the first segment of our show, which means it is time to move on to the news. I believe it was last week, February 10th. So that was last Thursday as we record this show. Apple put out a news release talking about AirTags. They have said that they're going to make some changes to the AirTag system, and they addressed some of the conversations about unwanted tracking. Part of it is that they are working with law enforcement to make sure that to try and help them sort of cut down and quell some tracking, concerns there, as well as new privacy warnings that will be put in place for AirTags whenever you set them up. Alert issues for AirPods. So some folks were noticing that they were getting a notification that said unknown accessory detected. And so then they immediately thought, oh my God, is there an AirTag on my person that I don't know about? And a lot of times that ended up being AirPods or some other device. So that will be updated to say unknown it actually will say AirPods. Will actually call them out instead of saying unknown accessory detected. It will say AirPods, AirPods Pro, AirPods Max, or I've got a pair of Belkin in-ear headphones that have that are on the Find My network, so it will notify with the name of that. Support documentation is going to be updated. They're making some adjustments to precision finding, which is the feature that uses the camera, ARKit, the accelerometer, and the gyroscope to help you find an AirTag in a space. So that's going to get a little bit better. They're kind of fine-tuning that, and on older devices, they'll be able to use that as well. Alerts will come with sound. So instead of just hearing boom, 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 the sound that happens from an AirTag, you will also see an alert on your phone in some cases when that happens. And then a few other changes to the algorithms that are being used, or I guess I should say the logic that is being used to determine when a device is or is not sort of put into the mode where it lets people know that the device is traveling with them. So lots of changes there. But Rosemary, you linked to a piece on Peer Reviewed called Some Important Follow-Up on Apple's AirTag Stalking Problem. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So this is actually a friend of mine, Matt Van Ormer, and he's just done a very good summary of the things. But the thing that he pointed out, which I think really underscores the beauty of AirTags and the brilliance of AirTags, is every AirTag has a unique serial number, and paired AirTags are associated with an Apple ID. And Apple can provide the paired account details in response to a subpoena or a valid request from law enforcement. And so basically, if people are using AirTags for something bad, and you take it to law enforcement and they go, hey, Apple, can you give us this information? Apple's going to go, yep, that's a valid request, assuming, of course, it's done properly, and give them that information, making an AirTag, whilst an incredibly cheap tracker, a terrible one to use for malicious purposes, because it's the one that sings and dances about its presence. And of course, Apple will give people that information as soon as it's been requested in the correct way. So I'm really pleased to see that this is improving. And there is now a third-party app for Android as well, because the native Apple app, or the app that Apple create for Android, does not do scanning in the background for AirTags. And there's now a third-party app which will scan for AirTags in the background, which is an improvement. So maybe Apple will update their own app, but if not, then it looks like there's a great free alternative.
All right. The next one, I found this story this morning, and I thought this was really interesting. I'm glad that you've included it as well. So Cellebrite is a known company for sort of hacking iPhones, getting into different devices. It's not just iPhones, but getting into devices. And so you get this kit, and then you're able to break into a device using known and unknown exploits and all sorts of different methods and tools. Well, it turns out that the kit that folks can buy does not work to unlock an iPhone. However, the company claims that it can unlock an iPhone. It'll just cost you $4,000. No big deal.
Yeah. And it can do it at $4,000, and you have to ship them the iPhone as well, which is... well, it's quite a big ask. I personally think it's quite nice to know that the software that they sell can't unlock an iPhone. And I suspect that this is a combination of they want to keep their software away from Apple employees or people working on behalf of Apple who are attempting to find out what the vulnerability is that they're using to unlock it, so that they can close it. And also, it's just great to know that the software that's sold that is in certain law enforcement agencies in various places around the world can't actually get into modern iPhones with modern encryption. It's a pretty good feeling to know that your stuff really is safe. And of course, if you unlock your phone when you need to, then you are pretty good.
Then everybody needs to hop on the update train choo-choo because Apple has pushed out the iOS 15.3.1 update. And this addresses a flaw in WebKit that could result in your device. It basically, it's a security concern. Yeah. So as quickly as possible, get that update, get it installed. It may not have fun new emoji, but it will keep your device safe. And is this the one where it was reported that there were some breaches? There were like two security updates in the past month, and one there wasn't a whole lot of concern, but the other one, Apple did see some exploits being used, and so it definitely needed to be updated.
Yeah, I believe so. The WebKit one is essentially where there's a database of your information in your phone, and in certain scenarios, in certain cases, other people were able to access that information, so they could do things like read out things like your Google profile image if you were signed into a Google account, and things like that. They couldn't actually read out the Google profile image directly, but they could read out the information that would allow them to access Google's APIs to get that sort of information. So it's really good that's been fixed. So yes, please hop on the update train. That said, I'm pretty certain most people have got automatic updates installed, and this one installed itself overnight a couple of days ago for people. But definitely check to make sure that you have updated. And of course, this one applies to Mac OS as well. So make sure you have installed a Safari update if you have one pending.
Absolutely. Get them all updated. And then... this is handy. Say you break your iPhone, you break your iPad, and you're thinking about getting it fixed. You want to go in and sort of get a new screen, or you think that there's something wrong with the Wi-Fi antenna. Maybe it got jostled loose when you dropped it. Apple is trying to make it a little bit easier to know what you're going to end up paying when you take the device in for repair. The Apple Support app that you can download in the App Store, it got an update that now features price estimates. So that way you will get a little bit more information about what things are going to cost, which I think is a pretty cool feature. So the example that they give in the 9 to 5 Mac article, it says, Chance Miller is the one who wrote this article. It says, Chance's iPhone 13, and Chance had gone through suggesting that their phone was damaged, their screen was cracked, and then it shows service options. And it says you can schedule a visit where you find a Genius Bar, or you can order an express replacement where there's a $99 service fee. So those prices are available now. You get a little bit more information, and you can kind of, again, get an idea of what's going on. They say this includes price estimates for common repair topics. So.
Yes.
Nice.
I should note that in some locations, they've not actually integrated everything into the app. So if I tap learn more about pricing, then it's going to scroll me or show me the Apple support page, which you can find online. And then if I scroll down, I can see how much it's going to cost. But it is localized to me in this country. I was on something earlier, and I believe it was liquid or water damage. And then if I tap on the service pricing, that actually scrolls me down to that information. So I'm actually part the way down the page. It's really difficult to see, even if you're watching the show. But the marker is about 2/3 of the way down the page to indicate where I am. So it has it's improved things, which is great. It's nice to know how much things might cost, especially when a friend or family member gets in touch and says, hey, so I dropped my iPhone. How much is it going to be to fix it? Especially if they've managed to get it into a state where they can't necessarily install an app. I may or may not have encountered some friends who've accomplished that wonderful state of Apple device. But it's good to know that you can find out how much something will be.
Indeed. Alrighty, folks, with that, we've reached the end of the news segment, which means it's time for Shortcuts Corner. This is the part of the show where you write in with your shortcuts requests, and Rosemary Orchard, the shortcuts expert, gives you her advice. Our first bit of Shortcuts Corner comes from Chris. Chris writes in to say, hey, thank you so much for your help on my Airtable to clipboard shortcut request on episode 588. That's last week as we were reading this. It works like a charm. My best to you both, from Chris. So, Rosemary, can you tell maybe folks who are tuning in today for the first time what Chris was looking for with their shortcuts request and how you helped them out?
Yeah, so Chris was essentially looking to get data from Airtable, which for people who don't know is an online database system, into his phone so he could copy it and then actually, use it in other places. He had a series of IDs that he wanted to be able to use in various places to keep documents linked together and things like that. Airtable's a great place to store it. So I walk people through how you can use a list, a dictionary, or a menu to do different things. And then, of course, how to get that information out of Airtable. And if you're interested in that, there should be links in the last episode show notes of the examples. And of course, you can pop back to the episode. And even if you wanted to jump to the right time to have a look at what that was.
Nice. And then Megan, who writes in, hi, Mikah and Rosemary. Love the show. Long-time listener to all y'all's podcasts. First-time contactor. Thank you, Megan. I need help on a shortcut I can't seem to make happen. Every day, I like to use the iOS Photos app to look at all the pictures taken that day from all years. Example for today, I would search for, and the person had written in on February 2nd, and it would show all the pictures that have that date regardless of the year. So February 2nd in 2002, in 2003, in 2005, I'm not going to go on. But what would be nice is if I could create a shortcut, bonus points if it ran automatically at the same time every day, that would take today's date, strip the year, and show me those photos. I've gotten close to getting it to work, but it shows the photos in a weird photo viewer mode and not natively in the iOS Photos app. The reason I want it to show in the Photos app is because I like to also check the people it has tagged, the location, and other metadata. Help? From Megan. Now, this is interesting because it sounds like what Megan wants to do is launch the Photos app and have the search happen there, as opposed to pulling photos from the Photos app and showing them in this native view that doesn't give Megan all of the information that they want of all of the metadata that's available. So this is an interesting one where I'm going, I guess maybe you could make it launch the Photos app and then it copies to the clipboard your search query, and then you just have to type in the search query and get it to pop up. How
Unfortunately, that is the solution that I've gone with here. Because what happens is if I go to the Photos app, then of course when I go to type something in, I can of course type, for example, Mikah, and I might find a couple of pictures of Mikah in here. But I can also type 15/02, for example, and then it'll find all the photos taken on the 15th of February Rosemary somewhere in the past. So what I've done is I've essentially done exactly what you suggested there, Mikah, because I tried a bunch of different things, but I ran into the same problem that Megan was having, in that it opens inside of Shortcuts. And so it's not in Photos itself in that lovely view where you can go and see who's tagged and so on and so forth. And of course, if you need to pop out, for example, to reply to a message from one of those people, then you're going to lose your spot. So what I've done here is I'm just formatting the current date. So I'm getting the current date and I've put it inside of a format action. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the date format, because what we don't want is all of the extra information there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to format it as just the day and the month, and I'm going to put a little slash in there. Now, of course, if you don't usually have slashes in your in your date, then you're going to need to customize that a little bit, but that should be doable. And then we'll just copy the formatted date to the clipboard and open Photos. So I'm just going to force quit Photos to make sure that search is definitely not there. And then I'll do this. And if I just type and paste, then I can tap on the 15th of February and see all 22 pictures taken on that day. Unfortunately, not many exciting ones in my photo albums, but hopefully, Megan, there are some better ones for you. And the link to this, of course, will be in the show notes.
Yes. Awesome. All right. Some feedback here. The first one comes from Chris. Chris writes, "Hello, Rosemary and Mikah. I've enjoyed iOS Today for many years, and my husband and I watch you faithfully. You're both great. Thanks. My problem is I set up calendar alerts and notifications expecting to hear my phone alert me. When I'm near my iPad, it goes off, but not my phone, and I get a haptic tap on my Apple Watch. I usually run it with the sound off, but I've changed that recently in hopes of solving this problem. Now the sound I get on my watch is a wimpy ding, and it's apparently the same for everything. It's not enough to get my attention, and I hadn't realized this was happening. I've scoured the settings on every device, but a recent conversation with Apple says this is the way it's set up. I'm trying to modify my behavior, but the alert I want is from my phone. Is there an automation that will allow everything to work the way it's set up, but to make my phone give me the notification alerts on its own? I've missed appointments, I've been late, and I hate that. Thank you so much for any help. Chris in Boise, Idaho." So essentially, what Chris seems to be talking about here is for them, they don't want to have the Apple Watch sort of take over the notifications that they would get on their iPhone if that was available. So an example of this is if you're wearing your Apple Watch and someone sends you a message, it will bop your wrist to let you know that you got that message if you have it set up to sort of mimic the behavior of what your phone does. But if I'm not wearing my Apple Watch, or I don't see it on my Apple Watch, then at some point my phone will notify me with that message and buzz or do whatever it is that I have it set up to do. Chris would like to be able to wear their Apple Watch, but also wants to get the notifications that are much louder and more prominent on their iPhone. And here's the thing, Chris, I have run into this issue as well. And I have found that the first party calendar app, the one made by Apple, makes it more difficult because Apple wants things to be so integrated, so, well put together, that you don't get as many options for making adjustments to it. And so because I use Fantastical, I do get those alerts, dings, sounds that I want on my phone, even if I'm wearing my Apple Watch. But I'm curious, Rosemary, because Chris mentioned an automation maybe that could solve things here. I don't know if there is sort of a clear-cut way, but do you have any other suggestions for what Chris could do?
Yeah, so my first suggestion is actually inside of the Apple Watch app. I don't know if you've already checked this, Chris. It sounds like you probably have, but for anybody who doesn't know, you can change the alert volume of your Apple Watch. And so I'm going to try and hold my Apple Watch a bit closer to the microphone here and just turn off silent mode and increase the volume. And it emitted a click. I could hear this. I very much doubt that the microphone picked it up. But you can significantly increase the volume, and you can also make haptic alerts more prominent, so that when your wrist vibrates, there was a sound there, and then it's a much much stronger vibration when you set this to prominent, which is going to decrease your likelihood of missing things, but it's not going to fix the problem entirely. There is something else you can do, which is inside of the calendar section of the Apple Watch app. You can say notifications and you can turn notifications off. And this will mean that you should end up forcing your notifications back to the iPhone. In my test earlier, that is exactly what happened, but I can't guarantee it. But it does mean you don't get that notification on your Apple Watch. So say you left your phone in another room, or, you're in the middle of washing your dishes and your hands are soapy and you just you get a ding and you want to look up what it is. You're not going to be able to glance down at your Apple Watch to so easily find out. So my suggestion would be, much like Mikah, try using another calendar app, something like Fantastical or Calendars by Readle, Readdle, can read the calendars on your phone without you having to sign into their system. And so you don't actually have to, sign up for all of the things, but it means that you should get extra notifications somewhere else. Because while you could set up an automation that goes in and reads out your calendar events and gets the start time of each one and adds a reminder, or schedules something in an app to do something in a specific time. It could even set an alarm. You can do that, but the problem with that is you're still going to get a bunch of things handed off to your Apple Watch. And the other thing is, of course, if a calendar event changes, it's not going to be up to date. And that is very much the problem with any solution here that is not syncing directly, which is why my preferred solution would be a second calendar app that is going to read out the calendars that are on your phone so that you have the same information in all the places and hopefully all of the notifications that you need. So much like me, you can do your best to avoid being late.
Very good. Very good. All right. Doug has some great feedback, writes in, "Hi, Mikah and Rosemary. I've been a fan since about episode 3 or 4 of iPad Today. That is quite a while ago. I really enjoy the new direction that the two of you have taken the show. Keep up the good work." Thanks, Doug. Scott from Australia was having trouble formatting a properly formatted date into a shared note for meal planning. My wife and I use almost the same system, a shared note, and I had the exact same problem. We are not even close to understanding shortcuts, so we used an old school solution. Instead of entering the note using the keyboard, now we just hit the microphone and dictate the information. Voila! Dates are properly formatted except for the number 22, which can sometimes come out as 22 January, for example. So we always go out to eat on the 22nd. Again, enjoy the show. Keep up the great work, and I look forward to many more episodes in the future. Doug. So Doug is suggesting that that there's multiple ways to kind of take these notes where you are doing a meal system, that by using dictation, the built-in dictation features as you sort of transcribe your voice to text will provide the properly formatted dates and can kind of simplify things for you if you don't want to get into the automations of it. But if you've got an expert on your hands who can help you figure out that automation, that shortcut, then hey, it's awesome that you can take advantage of that. All right, folks, with that, I think it is time to head into the final segment of the show. It's time for our app caps. This is the part of the show where we wear caps atop our head to honor our app or gadget picks of the week. These are apps or gadgets that we are using now or may have been using for a long time and just want to share with all of you. That is the explanation for why I'm wearing a wig and Rosemary's wearing a hat. Rosemary, tell us about the cap atop your head and then tell us about your app cap.
Well, the cap atop my head is it's a ski hat. It's got like a fleece lining inside of it. So I'm hoping that my app cap section doesn't last for too long. It's got a lovely gray brim and it's some very nice pink and blue and white stranded together. I think, yeah, that's a rib stitch. And of course, I have a nice fluffy pom-pom at the end because everyone needs a pom-pom. And my app for today is an oldie but a goodie because it's an oldie that's come back to life in a very special way. So I don't know how many people have heard of the app Joe Danger before. And Joe Danger is a great app or it's a great game, that you can, of course, play on your phone. But it's come back to life in a very special way. And I'm sure a couple of people saw this on Twitter. And I'm just going to give people a little bit of background. So essentially, the people who make Joe Danger, or who made Joe Danger in the first place, they didn't update it for a while. And it got to the point where you couldn't continue installing it on a new iPhone, which was a real shame because, Joe Danger is a pretty cool game. What happened is when Joe Danger stopped being able to be installed, there were some people who got pretty sad, and there were some people who got very sad for slightly different reasons. And one of them, his dad wrote to the makers of Joe Danger and said, "Hey, my son uses this to communicate, and it would be really great if you could update it and bring it back, because essentially his son is autistic and struggles with lots of things, but he gets to play Joe Danger when he's done whatever the difficult things are, and allows him to experience normal kid stuff." And I know anybody who's got friends or family with autism is aware of, the difficulties that some of these people have with things. And the great thing is, Joe Danger got brought back to life, and it's back on the App Store, and it's $1.99. Or there's an app bundle of Joe Danger and Joe Danger Infinity for $2.99. Each app is $1.99 each, but you can go ahead and play the game. So you tap to start, you tap to jump, and then we should be able to go. I just need to touch the start block, which is hiding, unfortunately, from me. It's a little bit difficult when you are playing live on air, unfortunately. So I will see if I can do this. I did really well at this the other day, and I am now just failing miserably, unfortunately. But if you accidentally exit the app, then cool feature, you get paused when you come back, which, as everybody knows, is much too easy to happen when you're playing a game live on air, because that just significantly increases the difficulty factor, especially when you keep swiping up. But I have to say, I'm really enjoying this game. And most importantly, I really enjoy the fact that it's back for everybody who's previously enjoyed playing it. And of course, for all those people who really, have made it a little part of their lives. I'm hopefully going to do much better next time. I did pretty well on the coins, and I got 1 out of 5 on the perfects. But I'm going to blame that on the fact that I am live on iOS today right now, as well as also trying to demo the game. So, Mikah, what's your app cap?
All right. So I'm wearing a silver sort of Gandalf style wig today. It just felt like a wig day, and I was feeling a little grumpy. No, not grumpy. Gandalf's not grumpy. Anyway, the app that I want to talk about, though, is called OneBlocker. And I've talked about OneBlocker before, but with the sort of renewed interest in the privacy concerns that we have, the privacy aspects, the way that the different sites and different services are tracking us online, I wanted to mention a really cool feature in OneBlocker. So in OneBlocker, this is a great app that works as a content blocker. What that means is, and this is a kind of a bit of a unique feature to Safari in the way that it works. So in a lot of different online add-on blocking tools, the way that the blocker works is by removing from the page and removing from your view the different content that is on the page. So you don't see the ads, you don't see some of the stuff. But in many a case, these things still load. They're just not visible, so they don't get in your way. With content blockers, it works a little bit differently. It will actually stop that content from loading on the page, as well as you not seeing it. So instead of it just being sort of a hidden thing that's the page kind of gets rendered and then the things get removed from it and it's sort of re-rendered after that, content blocking goes a step further by actually stopping the referenced ad or the referenced bit of code from rendering in the first place. So a content blocker is great. and I think is something that is worth looking into if you're hoping to sort of limit the way that websites can track you across the web. By default, OneBlocker will block web trackers and block ads on websites. You have the ability to disable or enable those features as you want to, but it will do that. The added feature, and the one that I think is worth checking out for anyone, is a feature called Firewall. And so this is a feature of OneBlocker. It's available to, you can download the app free. It's $2.99 a month or $14.99 a year for the premium version. And with this feature, you choose Enable Firewall, and it will install it installs it in the VPN section of your iPhone, but it is not a VPN. It works a little differently from a VPN. And what it does is it will keep apps from doing different types of tracking. So when you install a content blocker, the only thing that the content blocker can work on is the Safari browser when you're browsing in Safari, because that is the way that the system works. But each individual app will message, will send analytics information, will do all of that kind of stuff. And this feature will help you keep those apps from phoning home, from being able to contact those different things. So you can see that I don't currently have it turned on. An Enable Firewall button is there. That's because I ran into some issues where there are some apps that do need to phone home in order for them to work. And because I have a trillion apps on my phone because I do this show, then I needed to turn it off temporarily. But you may find that you can keep this feature enabled and that will work and will keep things from phoning home. And what I like is that as this runs, you can start to check in this app and see what different apps what they were trying to contact, who they were trying to contact, and kind of get more information at the very least of how apps are tracking your data and sending that information around. So if you want to upgrade your privacy and your protections, check out OneBlocker, because instead of it just working in Safari and on websites, you can take that to the next level where apps are unable to do that as well. So again, free to download, $2.99 a month for premium or $14.99 a year for premium, which will get you that firewall feature that at the very least is worth checking out. I believe it comes with a 1-week free trial if you go for the annual subscription. So give it a go, see what you think of it, and at least get an idea of what different apps are paying attention to and what they're not. All right. This hair is getting on my nerves, but it is time to say goodbye so that I can take off this wig. If you have questions for us, if you have feedback, if you have Shortcuts Corner requests, we always are available at the email iostoday@twit.tv. It's a great way to get in touch. If you'd like, you can tune in to watch the show live as we record it by going to twit.tv/live every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, which is 12 p.m. Eastern time. That's a great way to watch the show, see the flubs and all the stuff that might not be in the final version of the show. But we think the best way to get the show is by subscribing, which you can do by going to twit.tv/iOS. There, you'll find links to subscribe in via audio or video in Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all those different places. We try to be in all those places. Twit.tv/iOS to do that. The video version of the show is going to obviously. You'll get a lot of the information, but we do our best to describe what's going on so that the audio version of the show is just as entertaining and informative at the same time. I want to mention Club Twit. For $7 a month, you can join the club at twit.tv/clubtwit. When you do, you get some pretty great stuff. First, you get every single one of our shows ad-free, so you'll be listening through just the content. You'll also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has content you won't find in other places, including AMAs with lots of great guests. as Aunt Pruitt tackles that and interviews new people all the time. And then you get access to the members-only Discord server. That is a great place to converse with your fellow Club Twit members, but also those of us here at Twit as well are often hanging out in the Club Twit Discord. If that sounds good to you, again, that's twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month. We'd love to see you there. Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow you online and check out all the great work you do, where should they go to do so?
The best place is over at rosemaryorchard.com, which has links to all the things I do online. And of course, you can find me on Twitter at Rosemary Orchard or in the iOS Today channel in the Club chat room. Mikah, what about you?
You can find me at chihuahua.coffee. That's chihuahua.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online, or you can just tweet at me at Mikah Sargent on Twitter. Folks, thank you for tuning in to this episode of iOS Today. I hope we've helped you enhance and maintain your relationships. I hope you've enjoyed me being very annoyed by this wig, and we will see you next week for iOS Today. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
The world is changing rapidly. So rapidly, in fact, that it's hard to keep up. That's why Mikah Sargent and I, Jason Howell, talk with the people making and breaking the tech news on Tech News Weekly every Thursday. They know these stories better than anyone, so why not get them to talk about it in their own words? Subscribe to Tech News Weekly, and you won't miss a beat every Thursday at twit.tv.